Hey ho, creepy friends and weirdos. I'm your sinister host, Sylvia. Welcome to the Strange Vibes Horror and Weird Fiction Sunday podcast. Tonight, we have a few flesh-crawling tales for you. Brian Terrence reads part 2 of his shivery short story, Welcome to McDemons. You'll find part 1 in our March 29th podcast. After that, The Wonderful World of Moxie and Belly, written by Sirius. A lonely little girl finds unusual companionship in a cubby under the stairs. Next, we feature Multiform, the powerful and sinister tale of a brain tumor expanding like a cosmic force of destruction, written and narrated by Paul Radcliffe. And then, if you dare, stay tuned, and I'll finish up with the intro to my horror comedy Squirrels. Protect your nuts. Not for the faint of heart. And now, here's Brian.
Welcome to McDemons, written and narrated by Brian Terrence, Part 2. No one else in the restaurant had noticed that during the exchange between the young woman at the counter and the now very dead man loudly impacting the floor, all the other customers in the restaurant had faded and vanished along with their food. The lights had flickered, but it had all gone unnoticed. Although it wasn't the other customers that had left, but rather those that still apparently remained. An elderly lady had been standing nearby, and having overheard the comments about the numbers on the slips indicating life expectancy, she stepped over the dead man's rapidly decomposing body and addressed the woman behind the counter. "Excuse me, did you say that this number is our life expectancy? How do you know? Mine's quite a big number." The older lady actually looked hopeful for a moment. "Sorry, dearie, but you've forgotten your reading glasses. There is the decimal point. The number is large, but remember, it is given in seconds." The young woman behind the counter tried to look sympathetic, but she didn't manage it. The older lady blanched and fussed with her hair. Had she been wearing pearls, she would have clutched them. "Seconds?" the older lady said, stepping backwards away from the counter and inadvertently treading on the dead man's hand, not that he could feel it. The hand crushed to nothing under her step. She never even noticed. His corpse was becoming opaque and fading rapidly. A man standing in the corner walked over to join the older lady and the young woman. He was wearing what was once a suit, but now hung on him like a funeral shroud. He stayed clear of the corpse and asked in a hushed voice, "How is it calculated? Is it some sort of computer program?" He looked at his own slip. Although it was printed on paper, the number was rapidly counting down even as he looked. "That's impossible," he said, and held the slip away from him like it was a dead rat. "Why?" he asked the young woman, his expression pleading. He turned and looked towards the door as though he hoped to make a run for it, but the scene outside had transformed from a rather wet and miserable retail park into a burning and flame-filled landscape. His shoulders slumped, and he turned back to the young woman and asked again, "Why?" almost as if he knew the answer. "Why what?" she responded. "Why are you here? Why do you have only seconds to live? Or why are you going to hell?" "Yes, both or either?" he asked, although he felt he already knew. "Why would I be going to hell?" asked the older lady, interrupting the exchange, with some shock and indignation on her face. "I work at my local church, help charities, visit the sick." Her voice trailed off as the young woman stared coldly at her. "We know what's buried under the patio," the young woman said, it blandly, a simple statement of fact. The display panel above the counter flipped from showing the list of customers' order numbers to an image of a small patio in a suburban back garden. The older lady paled and slumped heavily into a nearby chair. "You know why you're here, don't you?" the young woman asked, turning back to the suited figure. His hair was straggly, he hadn't shaved for a few days, and he looked unhealthily tired. He nodded. "I'm an accountant, or should that be was, given where we are." I've helped a gang of violent criminals launder their money." He also looked as though he needed to sit down, but he turned and glared at the young woman, a defiant expression on his face. "I had no choice. Who are you to judge me? I want to appeal. There were mitigating circumstances." His defiance failed him, however, and he glanced outside again and then looked back at the floor. He couldn't maintain eye contact with the young woman's emotionless gaze. He remembered that smell, which was always stuck with him, the smell of fresh blood, the coppery iron smell on the holdall that the men had carried when it had been handed to him in the old car park. It had been a strange place to meet the client. To be given a holdall full of cash and told to sanitize it. He didn't have any choice, that was made clear. He wished they had washed the security guard's blood from it before handing it to him, though. But it had been a profitable arrangement. It had paid for holidays and girls and later drugs to help him forget that smell. That security guard had permanent brain damage. He'd had kids. All he could smell now was charred flesh.
Find out what happens next week with the stunning conclusion of Welcome to McDemons. Brian Terence writes a wide range of science fiction stories, both full novels and short stories, covering subjects such as humor, post-apocalyptic, space adventures, mysteries, paranormal, alien invasion, time travel, and robots. Some are humorous, and others are more poignant and thought-provoking. Now, we take a journey into the surreal. The Wonderful World of Moxie and Belly by Sirius. Moxie Giggles was Sarah Beth's best friend, and it was easy to see her because she lived under the stairs behind the peeling yellow wallpaper covered in soft blue flowers. She never really said much, and she never showed her face, but she laughed at all of Sarah's jokes. Why was the hot dog wearing a bun? Because he was a hot dog. No one else ever laughed. In fact, Sarah's doctor had looked her dead in the eye and said, with lips as straight as a ruler, "That's not a very good joke." "And that's just showbiz," the man on TV would say about it. Sarah had her very own TV with a 4-inch screen. Her dad had pulled it down from a shelf in the garage and blown the dust off the top. He called it a Hurricane TV, and it was only good for 2 channels, 3 if you twisted the long silver antennas on top. Sarah squirreled it away in her hole under the stairs. She could disappear down there for hours with her blankets and her stuffies, and not have to listen to her older siblings shout at each other above her head or listen to her mother's soft crying. "High functioning," the doctor had said about her. "You're lucky." Her parents had both nodded gravely. Sarah didn't know what high functioning meant, but she didn't feel lucky. If anything, she was lonely. Lonely, except for Moxie Giggles. Luckily, Moxie liked all the same shows Sarah liked. Sarah couldn't stand to have the volume very loud, so she wedged the TV into a corner to give Moxie the best chance of hearing too. She tried to be considerate because she liked it when people considered her, even if it wasn't very often. Sarah's favorite show was the Lenny Carson Comedy Hour. Channel 2 looped it all day, from the minute she finished her cereal in the morning to the minute she was called for dinner. Lenny Carson wasn't the host. That was just the name of some big fancy jazz crooner who produced the whole thing. The host's name was Belly, and he had an entirely white face with a wide black smile that curled up towards his ears. He wore striped suspenders and big white gloves, kind of like a clown. He kept making references to "my big red mouth," but the TV screen was in black and white, and it looked black. "Ah, shucks, shouldn't have opened my big red mouth." Sarah screeched, and Moxie Giggles laughed too. The sound was slightly muffled through the wall. Sarah shoved her coziest blanket over her mouth, to muffle her own laughter, making it even. On a rainy Wednesday, Sarah's mom was asleep on the couch. Her brother and sister were at school, and her dad was at work. It was just her and Moxie Giggles, and they could watch all the Lenny Carson they wanted. She thought she had seen all the episodes there were, but a new one was playing while she munched on a bowl full of Fruit Loops. Belly, the host, was not his usual peppy self. The corners of his wide mouth drooped down toward his chin, and the black lines down the center of his eyelids looked like they had been smeared. "I'm not a barrel of laughs today," Belly admitted, with a voice that was grainy like a radio. "It isn't all sunshine all the time, you know. I sure could use a reason to smile." Poor Belly. Sarah buried her face in her blanket and drew her knees up to hug them. Seeing someone she cared about, even just someone on TV, so visibly upset, pulled at her chest and made her want to cry. "I wish he wasn't sad. It's hard being sad, even for a little bit." There was scratching on the other side of the wall. Moxie wasn't giggling, but she still wanted Sarah to know she was there. Sarah tapped her fingers against the wall, and Moxie tapped back. Sarah tapped faster, then raced her fingers up and down, pretending like they were horses racing back and forth. Moxie mimicked each thump, ending in a sturdy knock. Sarah jumped in surprise and giggled. She felt guilty until she heard Belly giggle too. "Oh!" Sarah had an epiphany. She plastered her hand against the wall. "Moxie, can you make Belly happy again?" She didn't know if that was possible, since Belly was in the TV and Moxie was in the wall. The wallpaper buckled. There was a dry, popping sound, followed by wet slurping. The wallpaper became dark, like grease being soaked up by a paper bag, and formed a trail all the way towards the TV. The TV screen flickered. Belly looked over to the side, and his eyes got really wide. Cartoon wide, like they were going to bug out of his head. The screen went staticky, and fuzzy lines moved up and down the picture. Sarah gripped her blanket and waited. Technicolor bled into the picture as Belly stepped closer towards the screen. His mouth was red after all, and the lines down his eyes were blue. The stripes on his suspenders were yellow, and his eyes were bloodshot, like he had been awake all night. He opened his mouth, his big red mouth, and grinned. He had rows and rows of sharp green teeth. "Hello, Moxie," he exclaimed. "Good to see you too. Now we'll have some fun and laughs." He turned his face back toward the screen. His eyes were so big they looked like muffins popping out of a tin. "Did you bring a friend?" Belly asked. "Well, tell her to come along. We'll have fun together." Sarah waited to see who else would appear on the screen, but there was no one. "That's right, Sarah." Belly waved his hand. "Come on, let's move and groove." Sarah was too stunned to speak. She looked at the grease stain on the wall where Moxie had moved, and noticed the wallpaper started to peel up. She touched the very edge, and the wallpaper disintegrated in her hands. A big flap peeled back, and behind it was an empty, drafty darkness. It was a hole just big enough for her to fit through. "Come on, Sarah Barra. Don't keep us waiting." Through the drafty hole, Moxie's giggle echoed. That was enough to reassure her. If her friend had crawled through, then she could too. Sarah got down on her hands and knees and left her blanket behind as she inched her way inside. Sirius is a non-binary, disabled author writing from North Carolina. Their Southern horror novella, On Air with the Devil, was released February 17th. And now, ride the dark rhythms of Multiform with Paul Radcliffe.
Multiform. Glioblastoma multiforme is a fast-growing and aggressive brain tumour. It invades the nearby brain tissue. American Association of Neurological Surgeons. These strange plateaus of dying where you bargain away your dancing days, as long as it doesn't get any worse. Paul Monette, Last Watch of the Night. Multiform. I am the insurgency. The brain is a failed state. I grew in silence. All was normal until my presence was known, and by then far too late. They were shielded by ignorance, a fragile shield. They did not realize the privilege of life as it was. I did not need to scream rage at the uncaring world. My presence announced itself at a time of my choosing. There was no need for anger, only resolve. The frontiers that were exist only in name. They are faint lines on a changing map. The ground truth shows collapse and advance. There are deep caverns and fissures as I traverse the borders, and these I cross at will. I have always known the way. I need no charts, no impulses from far hemispheres to guide me. The stars are ours now. The glittering astrocytoma cells cast shadows on the broken paths, the desolate, pitted landscape. Once these hills, these grey quilted hills, defined love, shaped beauty and the deeper mysteries of perception and consciousness. But what is consciousness, and what are they now? Ruins, broken, shelves that have lost purpose. There will be no monuments to the pointless bravery of their defenders, no boundaries restored to guard against future incursion. They have become their own destruction. None will sing of their moral strength. They have become their enemy. Their flag has fallen, and it will not be raised or remembered. They know no purpose other than mine. We move forward together. The border fences lean like men on the verge of collapse. To stand is beyond them. I pass through like light through rusted chain link. Those few that remain to guard could no longer protect. They no longer serve warning of my advance. They have discarded their insignia. There may remain some flicker of their purpose, but it is without hope. Most are defectors now, some still fearful. They are part of me, or very soon will be. Some remain, a very few, guarding their terrain as if their resolution, mistaken by the hopeful as courage, served as a hardened bunker snowing my advance. It will not. Each day their numbers decrease, and we are so many now. There are contested outposts, and some of their function remains as before, but not for long. They are always encircled, and the ending as certain as remembered sunsets. At best they withdraw, knowing there is less to defend as they do so. The defenders knew their situation was hopeless. They called on their final deterrent. The brain itself was shielding. It could only accept a fragment of the chemical weapons they unleashed against me. Far too little, far too late. And we were always close, so close. Their targeting was flawed. For fear of further weakening what resistance remained, our advance was barely slowed, and they yearned for a different ending. But I hold no grudge. I do not negotiate or bargain. I fulfill my purpose. Certainty does not require a bargain. Death will be my victory, and I was always here in times of happiness. Everything they saw and loved, in all their pride and all their sadness, I was here. I watched for long years. I am the inevitable. I am destiny. Occasionally I paused, but this was brief, and I continued to move forward, aggression and purpose. The conquered terrain was once meaningful. Now it is a bare reminder, glimpsed perhaps, but ignored. A grim curiosity. Splendor has departed, and I am thought malicious, evil, an unjust aggressor defiling the innocent. I am none of these things. I fulfilled my tasks, and these tasks were set in the womb. I do not hate. And now their cameras are broken, their lenses cracked, cables hang loosely, and the few remaining images they send are beyond interpretation. The sensors are incapable of detecting relevance in movement. The warning signs are rusted and about to fall, the messages ignored. threats from an angry child. They are an irrelevant ultimatum. They cannot damage me without destroying what they were set to protect. Their flags are meaningless and they are a mockery. The country they signposted is disappearing, withdrawing into itself. The bunkers are shattered, the watchtowers crumble, the lines of communication are wholly compromised. Codes broken, strategies flawed beyond repair. I had grown with patience, and only with time was my presence even considered. I am subtle, and there is no need of haste. The ending was already set in stone, in polished, shining marble. From the day you first drew your breath, from the day when you saw only blurred faces, the glimpsed smiles of those who loved you, you grew in life and strength and contentment. I was calm in your happiness. I did not know resentment, for I knew it would end. I grew slowly, I drew others to my cause. The borders seemed formidable, but I did not attack. There was no achievement in tempting death. I merely persuaded others, and we grew stronger. Gentle persistence growing into a gathering storm, and in this way, as time passed, the insurrection grew. We did not recognize fairness or justice. If either exist, they are not our concern. They are for philosophers and thinkers to decide. The irrelevant distractions of a receding state, whose strength, if it ever existed, is a brittle facade that is falling away to reveal what? Collapsing shelters, no hope of rescue, the sobbing of children. Those that would defend you are deserting. They can no longer fulfill their task. And slowly, but with great persuasion, we spread our message, and others began the journey to become like us. I dwelled in far corners, unseen, lit by flickering lamps, and kept silence where my presence was suspected, and such tracks as I left were cleared by a doubting breeze, and silence and imagined peace returned. The terrain grew slowly more familiar, and we moved toward the border area. There were changes in the landscape, but none thought them significant. Few could even notice them. I was a shadow in the trees at evening, a face in the fire as the burning logs slip, rain on the window. I was a brighter spinning light at the end of a dream, and they saw scattered fragments of a bleak imagination. I was too frightening to consider. For them, innocence was their tragedy. I was a nightmare, no more. The sunlit mornings came, and all was as it should be, and it would never change. Horror was only imagined, and this, in truth, was my most powerful weapon. It prepared my advance to sensitive areas, and it delayed their defense. Now, I move in their city streets, I blend and destroy. I was familiar with their communications, the better to eliminate them. Still, there was complacency. They thought themselves too powerful, their weapons too formidable. Life itself was a story with no ending. It was not. I would gently ease my way through quiet streets. I did not pause at the abandoned fences or the empty customs posts, and yet they still thought all would be well, ignorant of my purpose. The dawn still rose each day after another. My presence grew. There were areas of suspicion and the very occasional skirmish, headaches, nausea, fatigue, all effectively camouflaged, and they sent no reconnaissance. There was no need to look further. They thought these the work of bandits of rabbles easily overcome. They were mistaken, for I had learned subtlety and disguise. I was seen as a lesser force, inconvenient but soon defeated. Until now. And they send their scanner, and the signals reflect and resonate. I shine in their control rooms. Their faces are anxious. They are hollow. They fear the worst, and in this they are right. I am a glowing outline staring back at them. I am bright, my stars dance. They see themselves defenseless. There is slowed breath and a rising pressure. The final weapon, the pinpoints of burning light. It has failed. They see only a luminous image. Strategy to end my advance has failed. They look at my image and think themselves expert. They do not see me smile.
Paul Radcliffe is based in New Zealand. He had an aunt who lived in a haunted farmhouse in England. Haunted by a monk, yes, really, which explains a lot. Paul works in emergency and is susceptible to hypnosis by cats. Now, if you're the sensitive type, go to bed and tuck yourself in. For those who dare brave the bloody hilarious, here's the intro to my book, Squirrels, Protect Your Nuts. Squirrels, Protect Your Nuts. Written and narrated by Sylvia K. Rose. October morning sunlight cast golden rays upon the farm. Rob Moore whistled as he walked through rows of vegetables. He stopped when he saw the plump carrots unearthed and late-season tomato bushes broken down, half-chewed fruit on the ground. Pestilent critters! He gazed over the wire fence at the harvested peanut fields next door. Used to be nothing but forest. Now it was 100 acres of vermin. The company planned to expand with cheerful signs advertising Blake's Premium Peanuts. Here we grow again at the rim of the tree line, and a picture of company owner Beverly Blake, head tossed back, blue eyes smiling, sunny blonde and heavily photoshopped. Squirrels were much more aggressive and destructive this year. The peanut fields fired up their greed. People complained about rodents raiding bird feeders and digging up gardens. The propane gun fired in the peanut fields all summer, and packets of poison lay untouched, except by a stray dog. Next year, Rob decided, I'll sell the farm for good money. His shadow fell over a small animal trap. He grinned. Gotcha! 3 squirrels, 2 black and 1 gray, peered at him in panic as he lifted up the cage. They scrabbled at the steel mesh and squeaked plaintively. Wreck my garden, will ya? All summer, he'd been battling an influx of these rodents. It's the wood chipper for you. He headed toward the barn. The wood chipper stood, dark and silent. Dried squirrel blood spattered the floor. He kicked on the machine, and the motor roared. Behind metal bars, the squirrels jumped and shrieked. Rob chortled and lifted the cage. In you go, you twisted little monsters. He raised the door of the little prison and tipped it toward the grinding teeth of the wood chipper. The squirrels chittered in horror as their claws scrabbled over the metal cage floor. They slid toward the voracious machine. As it tumbled to the door of the cage, one of the black squirrels took a flying leap. It vaulted from the edge and flung itself onto Rob's face. He fell backward, and the cage hurtled through the air. It struck the barn wall and bounced. The freed squirrel screeched and raced toward him. He tried to pull the rodent from his face, his screams muffled by the furry body. Claws ripped his scalp. Sharp teeth dug into his forehead and tore away a hunk of flesh. The other 2 scurried up his legs. In moments, the gray gnawed his knee down to the bone. The squirrel on his face scrabbled at his eyes. He squeezed them tight, and pain lanced through his head as rapacious claws ripped his face to bloody shreds. Rob shrieked and stumbled, arms flailing. He tripped on the small animal cage, staggered and tumbled headfirst into the wood chipper. The gray squirrel stomped on a big green button, and the machine roared to full power. Gore splattered the barn. The squirrels gathered together and frolicked in the blood spray. The wood chipper ground to a smoking halt as Rob's bones clogged up its gears. His legs stuck out. Dust drifted in sunlight. A burning smell rose from the machine. With chatters of glee and tails high, the squirrels bounded out the door to try their luck in the peanut fields. Join us next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more weird stories, dark and twisted tales. Till then, my friends, stay strange.